Hey guys, I'm Emiline, aka Winter Star Cosplay, and in this video I'm going to be teaching you all about how to create a casual, thrifted, or closet cosplay. First off, what is a casual cosplay? What's a thrifted cosplay or a closet cosplay? Well, based on the names, it's pretty easy to guess. A closet cosplay is something made primarily out of things from your closet, and a thrifted cosplay is made primarily out of things that you might buy at a thrift store or secondhand shop. Both of these cosplays fall under the heading of casual cosplay, which is a type of cosplay that might not be as labor-intensive or dramatic as, say, a suit of armor, but it still counts as cosplay. A casual cosplay is definitely just as valid a cosplay as any other kind of cosplay, and there can be a lot of fun to make. They can be especially great if you're a beginner and maybe you don't really want to go out and get a whole bunch of materials and things to create a cosplay from scratch, but you still kind of want to try out cosplay. And it can also be good for more experienced cosplayers who maybe want to just take a little break from ginormous month-long builds. So, what kind of cosplays can be a casual cosplay? Well, first off, it doesn't just have to be casual everyday clothing. My Lady Loki cosplay, for example, was definitely not casual clothes, but it still fell under the heading of a more casual cosplay, since most of it was thrifted and it wasn't exactly screen accurate either. A casual cosplay can be maybe another outfit that the character wears in the show that might not be their main costume, or maybe an AU design that's in the modern day, or just something that's a bit more casual than whatever their main costume might be. Casual cosplays sometimes aren't as recognizable as, say, if you did the entire full iconic cosplay, but they can still be a lot of fun, and one of the tricks for making sure that people can still recognize your cosplay is to figure out what the most iconic aspects of the character are and try to incorporate those into your design. Or you might just have to deal with the fact that not everybody will know what character you're cosplaying, and you can just get recognized by those few hardcore fans. To help show you how you can go about creating your own casual, thrifted, or closet cosplay, I went ahead and planned out several different closet cosplays, for which I gathered references for, made a plan, went out and bought things, and made a couple of smaller props to help make the cosplays a little bit more recognizable. For all of them, I also did their own photo shoot, and I ended up with some pictures that I'm pretty happy with. So let's go ahead and I can show you how I created several different casual cosplays, starting with Tony Stark. This casual cosplay of Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, from the Marvel Cinematic Universe was actually really easy to make. I started out by gathering some reference pictures of different outfits that Tony Stark wears in his movies, and then writing down a list of different things that I could make to create the cosplay. I was also doing a genderbent version, so I got to take some creative liberties. The whole design was a bit up in the air, but one thing I knew I wanted to include was his arc reactor. To make this, I started out by sketching a design on paper and then tracing it onto 2mm EVA foam. I cut out several different foam circles of the same size so I'd have lots of layers to work with. Once I had all the different layers cut out, I started sketching on the designs I wanted, since each layer would have a different design on it. After I had sketched on the design, I carefully cut out all the pieces in between the lines with an X-Acto knife. After that was done, I also cleaned it up a little bit more and then sealed it with a heat gun. Once I finished the two base pieces, it was time to prime and paint it. I started out by priming everything with a layer of matte Mod Podge. Once that had dried, I painted both pieces with a layer of sequin black metallic paint from Folkart. And once the base layers are dry, it was time to actually start painting it. For the arc reactor portion, I wanted it to look like it was glowing, so I started out with a bright white color in the middle, with a satin white from Apple Barrel. And then on the outside, I took a metallic blue color, also from Folkart, and used that to create a nice gradient, making it look like it was glowing a bright blue. For the top layer, I used a metallic sterling silver, dabbing it on the top portion and keeping it more black in the center, to make it look like it was glowing more brightly there. In addition to the layers of foam, I also cut out a circle of blue plastic to add an extra layer of interest to the arc reactor. And once I had finished all three layers, it was time to connect them all together. For this, I opted to just use hot glue, layering all the different pieces and hot gluing them together, trimming the edges afterwards to make sure everything lined up properly and I had a nice finished arc reactor. I also hot glued a piece of paper to the back just to add a bit more stability. And once the arc reactor was done, there were just a couple more things I had to assemble. The first being a nice pair of sunglasses, since Tony Stark wears them a lot and they're pretty iconic. The second were some metallic bracelets that I already had on hand because I thought they would add a bit more interest, and I saw other cosplayers using them and I thought that they looked pretty neat. Now it was time for the main wearable part of the cosplay. The first was a black button-down shirt that I got at a thrift store for pretty cheap. The second thing that I did was get a dark brown wig I already had on hand, style it a bit more, and then also add some makeup. I also did a gold hair clip just because I thought that it looked pretty Iron Man to me. To actually attach the arc reactor, I just double-sided some tape and then stuck that to the back so I could easily take it on and off. And once all of that was done, I added a black suit coat, put everything on, and the closet cosplay was completed. Although this was a relatively simple cosplay, I'm still really happy with how it turned out. I especially love how much the glasses and the arc reactor add to the whole look. Though this genderbent Tony Stark was only the first of 3 cosplays I did for this video, the second one being a Starfleet officer from the popular TV series Star Trek. Though this cosplay was more of an original design than based on any one character from the show, I still needed some iconic aspects of the Starfleet uniform. The first 2 parts of that being the comm badge and the pips. Both of these I cut out of 2mm EVA foam. The badge needed 2 layers of foam, which I glued together using hot glue, while the pips only needed 1. But for both of them, I took a safety pin and hot glued it to the back so that I could easily attach it to my shirt. The badge design for this cosplay I sketched freehand, but if you want some pre-made patterns, I have those linked in the description for several different badge designs from a bunch of the different Star Trek series. Anyway, back to the crafting at hand, I used an X-Acto knife to carve in another layer of detail, just to add a little bit more texture and dimension to the foam pieces. For the pips, I used several large dots of hot glue to add the raised details. And this is what the completed base build looked like. Once I completed the base builds and sealed the foam with my heat gun, it was time to prime them. Just like for my arc reactor, I used a layer of Mod Podge. For the painting, I used 3 different metallic colors: pure gold, sterling silver, and sequin black, all from Folkart. I started out by doing a layer of black metallic over both pieces, letting that dry, and then moving on to the gold. The pips needed to be painted gold around the very edges and on the raised detail, so I used a small paintbrush and went very slowly and carefully, doing multiple layers until I had a nice smooth coverage. Once that was done, I moved on to the actual badge, using metallic sterling silver to do the main Star Trek logo portion. After doing several layers of that color, I took the same pure gold color and used that to do the outer edges and details on the badge. Once the base layers were dry, I dry brushed some black paint to create some shadows. And then both of the foam pieces were done. Now all that was left was to put together the main parts of the cosplay. The trousers and high-heeled shoes I already had on hand, but I bought this blue exercise shirt for $2 from a thrift store. All of them separately didn't look like much, but all together they would create a very nice Starfleet uniform. I first put on the entire cosplay, pinning on the badges, and then moved on to the makeup. For the makeup, I started out with a simple face of makeup and then moved on to making it a bit more interesting, including doing a scar through one of my eyebrows because I thought it would be fun. If you want to see more in depth about how I do scars, you can check out my General Maya cosplay makeup tutorial. To make myself look like one of the alien species in Star Trek, which is a Trill, I used an eyebrow pencil to create some spots. And then once I finished doing my hair, this unnamed Starfleet officer cosplay was completed. This was a super quick, really easy cosplay to put together. Finally, for the last cosplay for this video, I chose Captain Marvel. This one was probably the easiest cosplay to complete, and I still really like how it turned out. For this cosplay, the only thing that I really needed to make was her shield baseball cap. For that, I started out with a black baseball cap that I thrifted, cut out a small circle of dark gray fabric that I already had on hand, and then drew on the shield logo with a Sharpie. Once the logo was completed, I took my hot glue gun, marked the center of the circle that I created, and then hot glued it onto the baseball cap. I also added more hot glue around the edges of the circle just to make sure that it would firmly stay on the cap. And then it was done. This was probably the easiest thing that I made for this video. And once that was done, it was time to turn myself into Captain Marvel. Or at least a version of me that vaguely resembled Captain Marvel. The makeup for this was pretty straightforward. I just added some things like eyeshadow, mascara, a little bit of lip liner to make my lips a bit more pink, and then I just curled my hair just a little bit at the front to make it look a bit more like hers. When I was looking at thrift stores, I couldn't find a shirt that exactly matched hers, but I did find a white t-shirt with some text on it that seemed like something Captain Marvel would wear. I also found this nice dark green jacket that worked pretty well for the cosplay. And once I added the baseball cap, that was pretty much the entire look. Something else for this cosplay was that I needed my hair to be much shorter as well as more blonde. I couldn't do a whole lot about the blonde part without dyeing my hair or getting a wig, but I could fake my hair being shorter by tucking some of it underneath the back of the jacket. It's not perfect, but for a 5-minute fix, I think it looks pretty decent. As an afterthought, I added the same glasses that I used for my Tony Stark cosplay, since she has some pretty much like it, and then the cosplay was completed. Alright, so these are the different casual cosplays that I created. All of them came together fairly quickly, and I had a lot of fun making them. I hope that you found this video helpful, and in watching it that you got some ideas for your own casual or closet cosplays. If you did like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of my future cosplay videos. I have a really fun one planned for next week. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.